Welcome to another edition of the Royal Lions UK podcast, episode number 99, Down with the Sickness. This is our review podcast for the Broncos Lions game here with my co-host Stephen Collins and Brian McCluskey. How you doing, boys?
I'm all good, thank you very much.
I missed Monday last week, and I'll come back to this.
How did you miss last week? But let's talk about that, Steve. How did he feel with a win last week? Let's just touch on that for a moment.
I mean, yeah, that was beautiful, wasn't it? A beautiful moment. It really was. I think such a relief for everyone as well, just to kind of get that sort of hoodoo off our backs, because it's just been haunting us. I think particularly since the Steelers game. But yeah, it was great to get the win. But then I think we all kind of, you kind of want to think, okay, we're going to progress and we're going to get that second win. But then I think from about midweek, when the news reports started coming in about the, illness in the camp, I think we could all see where this was going, and we weren't disappointed.
The writing was on the wall early. How early reaction, Ryan, before we delve into it?
Not surprised whatsoever. I expected us to get turned over just because of lack of numbers, and it played out exactly as I thought it would. There was more personal errors than I would have liked. We were very sloppy as well, so I was kind of disappointed at times.
Yeah, there we go. Right, let's delve into some news before we go into the game review. Just to start off, don't forget our Discord channel. Do join us on there. DM's open on Twitter. Hit us up for a link to that. Lots of chat about the football, whether in team, in division, in conference, what have you. Loads of content coming about the draft as well in the off season, so you want to jump on that if you can. College Football Podcast is possibly on this Wednesday. I actually don't know if you're going to have an episode this Wednesday. Yeah?
I believe so, yeah.
Fair enough. I have no idea what about. Do you know what about?
We're going to go over the bowl games, and we'll look towards New Year's 6 and the playoffs. We'll discuss what happened with the Heisman, because the award was given out, and all those the finalists, and we'll go through more news with the portal. But we're just looking towards, I suppose, bowl games. We're going to pick the ones to watch, who to look out for, which are the best matchups, and we're going to just wrap up the season nicely and put a bow on it just in time for the holidays. Now everything is kind of cut and dry before the big finale.
And I guess you got to talk about the All-Star game when it comes to uniforms as well over the weekend.
Yep. Also, we had the military appreciation game. They had Navy v Army, very tight contest, long tradition, very big rivalry being military academies, and it did not disappoint.
I found it quite fascinating, actually, after the end of the game and all the team go and kneel down in front of their fans and sing. I've never watched the game before, but that was quite a moving moment, actually, especially kind of watching the losing team mumbling their way through and then the winning team singing their hearts out. It was quite a cool thing to watch. Don't forget to like the videos, sub to us on YouTube and Twitch and what have you. That really helps us out. And we're part of Lions Nation Unite. We're going to keep banging this drum because what we're doing is something really, really cool. Hoping, fingers crossed, to have Herman Moore with us this week. So you will not want to miss that. So let's dive into the news. And to start off with, unfortunately for every Lions fan, the feel-good story of the year has come to an end. The undrafted free agent cornerback Jerry Jacobs, for me, the CB1 so far this season, has confirmed he suffered an ACL injury during the game. It's been described as a severe tear of the ACL. He's done for the season. The usual rehab time for such an injury is estimated to be 9 months before he's, even really playing at 60, 70%. That will put it at the very start of next season. He should miss preseason entirely. And guys, just stop there. That's such a shame for a guy that, as a UDFA, may never have gotten picked up by someone, worked really hard, got picked up by the team in pre-season, may not have made the 53-man roster, might have made the practice squad, but he made the 53, could have got cut early on as we'd pick people up, but he managed to hang in there, and then when injuries come down, he's the one guy throughout the whole season that really stepped up to the plate when no one expected it to. And I feel so bad for him because I think in our end of season awards, he would have been right up there as MVP for me of this team.
Yeah, you can make a case that he's one of the best players of the season, even missing the final 4 games, that he's still going to be up there in some form of voting or picking potential. He seems like he's got captain material in him. Like, he's such a good story. He got such little offers. He managed to get through and make the roster, which is the hardest thing to do. Like, getting on the field is one thing, but just making a 53 from a practice squad is even harder. Hundreds of thousands of players go through the NFL cycle and through college, but many of them, like 0.03%, will ever play in the NFL, and he's one of that minuscule percentage. So he's living his dream, and it's a shame that it's such a severe injury. We've now got 3 ACLs that are coming back next year, and it's not a forgiving injury. You don't know if a player will ever be the same again after an ACL, especially at a position where your knees are bent all the time. You've got a back pedal. There's more strain on the lower legs of a defensive back than most positions. It's going to take a very extensive recovery. Let's hope he can just be in time for week 1 next season. But he seems like a strong young man that will probably wipe away the tears or hide it with a smile. He's probably hurting right now, but I think he's putting on a brave face for everyone, which is nice to see that he's trying to be tough. But you saw the tweet saying, like, he kind of just wants his mummy. And I think I would too. I don't blame him.
Yeah. We haven't seen you on the pod for a little while, Steve. So what have you made of Jerry's season so far?
I think, like the Jerry Jacobs story, it's like, we can all fall in love with him, because I think after so many players have played down to their potential and have kind of disappointed this year or not quite lived up to how we thought they were going to be, here's like one guy that's just absolutely blown us away and completely surprised us in terms of, as Ryan said, like making the roster, but then not just making the roster, but making plays straight away, like contributing, not looking out of his depth, maybe still showing those rookie mistakes, but showing massive flashes of potential. And I think that's what's been so nice when we've had so many kind of disappointments, just to see this one guy who's just come through and like really, really impacted on the team. And yeah, as Ryan said, it's a killer injury, that torn ACL, with the amount of changing direction at real high speeds, those fast twitch muscles that need to kind of like rebuild. It is going to be really tough for him. But if he can get through, the pre-season and like he's done this season, I'm sure he's going to be able to rehab. My worry is that he's already behind in terms of his development, but he's going to miss pre-season again now, when he could have really benefited from those practice games and that time with the coaches.
I do really hope that he can come back earlier than expected and have that preseason, because I agree with you. It's a bit of a killer. I mean, at the end of the day, when Okuda comes back, I feel certain he's at least going to be given the chance at cornerback. Although I do feel like moving to safety is probably the move that's going to happen eventually. He'll be given the chance at corner. If he's obviously a 3rd round pick, I think Amani's definitely has to be there. That's cool. Yeah, Amani's definitely going to be there in that CB1, CB2 role. And then you've got Mark Gilbert's shown up with a bit of good play, and you've got other people who are trying to fend for that role too. So whether he comes back and might have to revert to the practice squad for a little while just to kind of recuperate, and whether that puts him at risk because someone might go, well, by the time he does recover, I think he's going to be a really good player for us, so I'm going to claim him. Like, can you put him at risk down there? There's so much to think about with him, where you want him on your 53, but he's not going to be able to play for the first month, probably, at least, definitely not as a starter. It's so hard to judge. Ryan, what do you think?
Well, I think we're safe in the fact that you've got those 4 players that you can protect every week. So even if he sits on the practice squad, he can't be taken. We can keep him protected every week. So I'd like to think if he is back early, he'll be straight back in the conversation. But then we've also got to think that we've got Iffy as well. And there's no doubt we're probably going to draft a cornerback. So it could be a totally brand new room. We might sign a free agent. Who knows if these guys are ever going to get back in the Lions uniform at cornerback, because we could have a high turnover of all the cap space. So it's certainly up in the air. It's going to be a very mixed bag at cornerback because we've seen some very up and down play this year.
We have. Moving on to our next injury as well. Alex Anzalone exits the game with an ankle injury. I think that was quite early on as well, actually. Let's have a look. Anzalone had 15 snaps in the game, having played almost 100% of the snaps. Otherwise, didn't return. Didn't look like he was in a huge amount of pain on the sideline, but didn't come back, which is a bit of a worry. He has been a liability in the run game, but he's easily been our best coverage player in the entire defense for me, at least since a certain other linebacker left, Ryan. And I think if he's out for any significant time, yes, Josh Woods came in and availed himself quite well, but they're a difference in class, right?
For me, I think he's pretty much done enough to be back next year. I can see why they didn't face him, because we played a team that was very run heavy. That is kind of his weakness. I feel like they were probably protecting him, keeping him out for his own good. So I'm not surprised that he sat on the sideline, because I think if anything, if he'd have come in against the likes of Gordon and Williams, he would have been at risk of potentially getting hurt more. He is a solid coverage linebacker. The people that came in for him, very mixed bag. As you said, Josh Woods, probably leader in tackles, but Barnes, a lot of mistakes in with a good play. So it wasn't great when he went down. I'm just glad we're there at the end of the year. Like, anything right now isn't too detrimental. I wouldn't be surprised if they watch him next week, like practice. He may not play again next Sunday, but I'd like to think we'll see him again this year. And it's a chance for other people. We've been saying for weeks Derek Barnes needs more snaps, and we saw the bad in him, which proved why he needs more snaps, because even though he bumped up to 69%, he struggled. So maybe he does need a little bit more polishing. So maybe it's time to sit Anzalone.
Yeah, so Steve, we were just talking about the fact that Anzalone exited the game early with an ankle injury. What do you make of his season so far, especially after Jamie Collins went? And, what do you think of the guys who came in relief of him? So you're looking at Derek Barnes, Josh Woods, a couple of the other guys too. You there, Steve?
Sorry, I think my internet's playing up a bit.
That's all right. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hear you fine.
I lost in the question. I heard you saying about Derek Barnes.
So Anzalone went down with his ankle injury and didn't return, and Barnes came in relief, and so did Josh Woods. Woods seemed to avail himself okay, especially given that he had the green dot. Barnes seemed to struggle a little bit, and a couple of other guys filled in as well. What did you make? What have you made of Anzalone's season so far, especially after us getting rid of the problematic linebacker alongside him, that his play perhaps improved slightly? What do you think that's going to do to our defense for the last few games of the season if he's not able to play, or if, as Ryan says, maybe it's wise to maybe sit him for a game?
I mean, I think Anzalone certainly answered a lot of critics with some of his performances, possibly more his organisational performances, as well as his, ability to make individual plays. He certainly seemed to be the one that was providing some leadership. I think my worry was that, Barnes got burned a couple of times on coverage. I'm not sure if anyone picked up on that, but there was a couple of times when he did look out of his depth covering. I think Noah Fant he was matched up on a lot, and Fant got away, and had some receptions and quite a bit of yards. And it just seemed without Anzalone, I think he's better in coverage than Barnes.
Yeah, absolutely no doubt about that. Barnes on Fant is a matchup nightmare, really. I mean, Barnes is a solid run defender and a good blitzer, but in coverage he does look lost. So that's bad. And people forget sometimes, I think, that Noah Fant is a first-round tight end who has lots of production and is helped by a myriad of really good receivers around him, so he doesn't get double covered very often. So, that was always going to be a struggle. Just to mention as well, at the end of the news segment, the Broncos took an early, first snap delay of game penalty, which the Lions declined to open the game to honour the late Demaryius Thomas, who died last week, aged 33. And really an outpouring of emotion from pretty much everyone in the league. This guy seemed universally loved. He obviously had a really famous play where the first play of overtime, he took it to the house from Tebow against the Steelers, and that, will go down in the annals of history. He obviously was a very humble guy. So many stories have come out about him, about what a good guy he was. And I actually saw a comment saying, it's really sad that we always jump over the guy that gets things wrong so often, but it takes a guy dying to talk about what good people we have in this league, and Demaryius Thomas seemed to certainly be one of those.
Yeah, real shame. As he was only 33, like that's only a few years older than some of us, and that kind of makes it really sink in. We don't know the cause. I read somewhere some sort of possible medical illness. Maybe he's been battling something that we don't know, but these guys are athletes second, but they're people first. You just don't know what's going on in their lives. Obviously, people have got stuff going on behind closed doors. We've seen stories of people battling mental health or illnesses that they don't want to talk about in public eye. I loved it was a lovely gesture, not lining up an ex-receiver, saying, like, he'll always be there on the outside. We'll always have him in our hearts. Justin Simmons made a big play, ran straight over to the 88, threw the ball on. So he was in everyone's thoughts and feelings in the game. And it made a bad performance feel better for me, because at least I knew that this was actually like in honor of someone. They were playing more hyped up and probably bigger than they sometimes do, because they had someone in their hearts on their helmets. So I think it was a good feeling all around, and it was just a nice gesture. And people seem surprised that Dan Campbell declined the penalty. Well, anyone in common sense would have declined that penalty, because it was just part of the gesture. But it's just, we all knew him. We've all grown up with him. He played for most of our lives. We remember him well as one of the more underrated receivers potentially in history. Maybe one day sneaks in to that Hall of Fame, just in a small ballot, whoever knows. That you can never rule a guy out like that.
I think the Broncos handled it really classily. It just felt like a really nice tribute, and yeah, like you said, the Broncos players are really hyped up. I think I saw a report in the press that he might have died from a seizure, and that he'd suffered from seizures since he'd stopped playing. And I think there's a definite concern in terms of once players have retired, some of the health problems long term that they might have picked up from some of the high impact collisions. And let's just hope that that this wasn't a connection.
Yeah. He just someone who always had a smile on his face. There was a really nice story I read about. I think it was about Super Bowl 50, which the Broncos obviously won. And I think it was something along the lines of he was flying back on the plane to Denver, and there was like a journalist traveling with the team or something like that, and he took the time to spend the entire flight with the journalist's son while the rest of the team were all celebrating by themselves. He was just playing with this kid all the way through the flight, playing, a helicopter, flying around the aircraft and whatever. Like, just guy that young at heart, and there's something that you love to see, and that I really do wish that we would celebrate these players before they pass. And if you do hear good stories about people, I just want to tell them. I mean, I don't hear too much on the grapevine in the UK here, but if I ever do, I'm going to try and commit to telling their stories while they're here, because they deserve it. They absolutely deserve it, and the Demaryius deserved it. Right, let's talk about the Lions-Broncos game, which seems slightly inconsequential now, but there you go. Inactives list: DeAndre Swift, Julian Okwara, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, Hawkinson, Blau, and the maligned trade asset Trinity Benson. We were obviously enamoured with flu issues, and as far as I'm aware, everyone who had the flu was active. However, it really hit us hard in the snap count. So you might have seen us say in a load of different tweets from Ant that this was going to be Jermar Jefferson season this game, and he only had 3 snaps. So that's the impact of the flu, right? The guy clearly came in kind of sharing reps with Godwin Igwebuike at running back 3, but he was fit enough to just be on the bench and came in for a snap here or there, but couldn't take any more of that, which is a real shame. The Lions obviously lost 38-10. Looking at the game to start with in the first quarter, Ryan, the Broncos got out to a really early 14-0 lead. The Lions punted in between that, and there were only 3 and a tiny bit possessions in that first quarter. They were both 2 really long drives, and I was fearing very early on that 5-yard rushing touchdown from Williams and a 1-yard rushing touchdown from Melvin Gordon would start off an avalanche of points, which didn't transpire, at least in the first half. But I feared the worst. How did you feel after that?
I feel like I agree. I was expecting the worst. I predicted us to lose by 14. Now I'm thinking, oh God, this is going to be like Texans on Thanksgiving. This is going to be a 30, 40 point loss because we're just going to get tired. They're going to run over us. I feel like at times they took their foot off the gas, but also we stepped up. At the end of that first quarter, 14-0 down, I thought well, this is going to plan. This is how it'd go. I was hoping we were going to buckle up and not get our asses handed to us. I didn't want embarrassing because you could only use flu and sickness as so much of an excuse. And I know that a lot of people were harping on about that, but I think we kind of reined it in a little bit. The second quarter was much better in general. I think we clamped down. It was the case of the whole year. In the first quarter this season, generally, we're terrible. We just played really bad in first quarters and first halves nearly all year. So it followed the script of the pattern, but suddenly we woke up, which was nice to see.
How did you feel after the first quarter, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I'd feared the worst, and I think it was just the ease that the Broncos were able to go on those 2 drives. I think each drive was like 11 or 12 plays, and they kind of just cut us to ribbons. Teddy was able to make some throws, and the defense just didn't look like making a stop. And I think with so many new players on the roster for the game, it was inevitable that the defense would take a while to sort out. As Ryan said, this has happened time and time again this year, but I think it was kind of exacerbated by the kind of turmoil on the roster. So it really didn't surprise me when they scored both times in the first 2 drives. I think what did surprise me was on our second drive, we scored. And I certainly wasn't expecting that.
No, so moving on to that touchdown, finished off with a nice pass to Khalif Raymond, 7 yards out, swung it out to him early and managed to beat the guy to the corner. And that was all set up by, I had it in my head, a big Craig Nelson run for 35 yards. So Netflix came in, he was activated before the game from the practice squad. We all know what he did in pre-season. He was an absolute revelation and hasn't been on the team since. Adam Schefter reported early on that he was going to possibly be the lead back. He said, I'm starting him in one of my fantasy leagues. And we were like, what you like? Who's this Schefter guy? And then he comes in, starts the game, and he has a terrific game and pulled off that 35-yard run. Have we made a mistake by not having him on the active roster, Ryan?
No, I won't say so. You can have a good pre-season, but that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about a guy. There's a reason he's been buried behind the depth chart. Godwin, this was a bad game, but he's had a good season. This is a blemish on a good year. So I saw people saying, let's cut Godwin, get rid of him straight away. Park the bus a little bit, guys. Come on, you can give him one bad game. Kerryon Johnson had hundreds of them. So chill out. But I think he's an opportunist. We've lost Swift, we lost Williams. He got the call up, and he obviously showed stuff in practice this week. He must have been taking some snaps in practice and mingling with the actual roster. Now he was activated and people were sick and they were segregating people. So he got a chance. Dan Campbell has seemed to have an eye for giving players the right chance at the right time this year, especially like the UDFAs and those guys. And he showed that he's able to rise to the occasion, which is something most people can't do. Partisan crowd, mile high, cold, tough conditions. Everyone's, coughing and sneezing. As you say, we've got bad count, but he did a really good job moving the chains. It wasn't sexy, it didn't need to be, but he's a gritty guy with a decent turn of pace. As he showed that 35-yard run, he makes a cut. I think it's a safety of the linebacker, cuts back inside, and it's a leg race then. He almost gets away. But Jefferson has been the real loser, I think, all year, because no matter who is able or who is active, he just don't get touches. He right now is probably running back 5. He's probably behind everyone, and that upsets a lot of people. But they see things we don't see. Maybe he's just not earning the touches. I know he's got the touchdowns on the long runs, but I'm more about longevity and consistency, not home runs. So it's going to be a case to see that a lot of these guys are fighting to be here next year. Could all be here. They won't all be here, but it's going to be fun to see who will be.
What did you make, Steve, of Netflix? Have we made a mistake not having him on the active roster? Because he proved it in preseason and he proved it yesterday.
I mean, he was so impressive in preseason. The kind of impact he was able to. I think we necessarily got it wrong because running back, has been one of the rare positions of strength that we've got on the roster. With Swift and Williams, that's a really good 1-2 punch. And it was inevitable there was going to be a bit of a committee behind them for like RB3. A funny thing as well was when Godwin fumbled the ball, I just was saying to myself, like in my head, wow, this guy's got some speed, because he really took off. And you could kind of see his like straight line speed as he picked up the ball. And literally at that moment, he fumbled it. And I was like, oh, shit.
It's your fault.
Yeah, Reynolds stepped in and this was my fault. But yeah, the minute that Reynolds got the ball, he looked like the Reynolds in pre-season. In pre-season, I think against the Steelers, we'd all kind of said to ourselves, yeah, but it's only pre-season. It's only pre-season. Can he do this against a real NFL roster? And straight away he did. And I think he ended up with like 75, 80 yards. I mean, but he just looked so impressive. Like yards per carry was great. He looks a real prospect. And yeah, I think Jefferson, you're absolutely right, is the loser in this, because Reynolds has been able to make an impact that probably Jefferson hasn't quite managed.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you guys, do we think, should we shut Swift down? Is there any need for DeAndre Swift to play again this year? Do we feel comfortable about our back depth? I feel like maybe just put him on IR and let these guys battle it out for next year.
I think that's a really good show.
Yeah, totally with you. There's no point in risking him in pointless games. He's one of our most important assets for the future. We need to protect him, and there's not a huge drop-off, at least in terms of running production, from what we have right now. In the passing game, maybe we need to find an answer, but Amon-Ra has stepped up, and talk about that in a moment. So I don't see any downside to it, really. Do we want to win a game? I mean, I want us to look good. I'm not sure if I want us to win. I'm on the brink of flipping. I don't want to tank. I hate that. But I kind of want us to be just bad enough that we can play well and still lose, I think, at this point. So that's a horrible thing to say. I hate myself, but there we go. The Raymond touchdown was followed up by a Patterson 36-yard field goal to make it 14-10 to the Broncos. The Lions then, at the end of the first half, had a chance to hold the ball, but they squandered it, punted away, and with a minute to play, the Broncos drove down the field in the 2-minute drill and scored a 52-yard field goal to make it 17-10. It would have been a 57-yarder, but Jesse Lemonnier couldn't get back onside with 3 seconds to play. And I was like, oh, well, it must have been a false start and a 10-second runoff. Let's get off for halftime. And I mean, it was a matter of inches, but he definitely didn't get there. And it feels shitty of me to kind of dump on Jesse after being put in a pretty crap situation, being on the practice squad for some of the year, then being activated, but not really getting much of a chance for me to say, oh, this guy should be a bit more disciplined. But at the same time, that that gave a lot of momentum away at the end of the first half. It didn't seem like much. It was only 3 points, but it really did kind of, in my mind, stretch it out that just a little bit further. How do you guys feel about that little moment there? 57 yards, still well within McPherson's range, but much harder than 52.
Well, it's a lot harder. Mile High Stadium is known for notoriously being awful to kick in because it's open to the elements. It's just a natural wind tunnel, isn't it? The big high sides and it goes right through. You either got the wind or you don't have it. Maybe it don't make any difference, but Lemonnier, I believe he was at the Chargers before us. He was there a year or two. He came here, so he's been in the NFL system maybe 3-4 years. So he's kind of grained in. He's basically a veteran now. He's finally getting his chance when he's never really active. So if that's the only thing he does all year and gets released, it's not going to look good, is it? Like that, as you say, I think what bothers me the most is that if we'd have got that stand and then got the ball after halftime, totally different thing. But then we were desperate to respond coming out the half. And well, we know how that went. But I'd have loved to get the hold and actually manage to go into the half with a little bit of a good feeling in my gut because we'd have gotten a stop there. So the field goal was quite frustrating. The whole drive was kind of frustrating. Left too much time on the clock because we were just ineffective as general. And then we helped them even more, putting them in field goal range, which was a bit better.
And it was just at that point that like Goff started to Goff. You know, he'd had some momentum, and then all of a sudden it's like two incomplete passes in a row, and you could just see that tension in like his body, and you could just see that he was like not quite clicking. He was missing his receivers. The throws were just a bit amiss, and it was kind of inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of give Goff a little bit of a pass because Swift being out, I think a lot of the plays in the passing game on third down are kind of designed for him, and some of them are crap passes behind the line. But on that particular drive, just before the end of the half, I don't know if you guys remember, but Amon-Ra lined up at running back to the right of the quarterback. Goff takes a snap, and it's a timing wheel route round the right-hand side, and Goff makes the right throw at the right time, and Amon-Ra kind of bails on the route early looking for the ball when he should be going heavy metal to get to his spot and then look for the ball. And then I think there were several instances of actually Goff having the ball on the money and the receivers not being in the right place. Equally, I do think there were plenty of inaccuracies from him as well, but I think with the disruption to preparations in this game, there's been no bigger Goff critic than me through this season. I, on several occasions, have said openly that I want to cut him tomorrow, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm saying anything different. But for this game, I'm kind of giving him a pass with all of the flu and COVID cases basically wrecking practices this week. So I'd
But on the flip side, we've already known for ages Swift wasn't available, so we kind of need to have players not designed for Swift because we knew he wasn't going to play. So we've got to have a plan B, haven't we? I suppose everything can't revolve around him when you know he's out, which is kind of frustrating because, as you say, we have a plethora of other backs that could potentially run that play. I didn't like Amon-Ra at that place at that time. You could have put Reynolds there. Let's be honest.
I don't know. I kind of feel. Yeah. Sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say Reynolds just doesn't seem to be able to get open, or Goff doesn't seem to be able to find him because we're still relying too much on those short routes. And you just want Reynolds to be that guy that can, take a pass 20 yards down the field at that point just to take some of the pressure off. But instead Goff is like going back into that shell where he's only throwing 3 or 4 yards and the margin for error is so small all the time.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, I didn't mind Amon-Ra being in that spot. For me, he's the best route runner on the team. I don't think it's particularly close either. And I think it was just a rookie making a rookie mistake. But if he you can see with the amount that they're feeding him the ball right now that he's the guy that they trust in that offense. Regardless of Swift or not, Amon-Ra is the guy. So they wanted to feed the guy. The guy that they thought had the best chance of making that play. Now, he didn't make it, but I don't think that makes the decision wrong. I don't think that... So when you say Reynolds, do you mean Josh or do you mean Craig? Ryan?
Oh, Craig, not big lumpy. I say Craig. Or Khalif Raymond, I think he's up there as one of the good route runners, and he's faster. When you run a real route, it's all about timing. So one of those, like, oh God, not Josh Reynolds. He moves like an 18-wheeler.
18-wheeler pro trucker. Yeah, so so that ended up with the half 17-10. Looking into the second half, without delving too deeply, the Lions had 4 straight turnovers. So they started off with a Godwin fumble that Steve already talked about. The next Lions drive ended with a 4th and 2 at the Lions 33, desperately chasing the game. The next drive ended in a 4th and goal at the 4 that they couldn't convert, and finally a really bad Goff interception by Justin Simmons. The Broncos, in between all of those turnovers, scored 21 unanswered in the second half. A Javonte Williams 10-yard passing touchdown, a Melvin Gordon 14-yard rushing touchdown, and then Albert Okwuegbunam, yes, that's not it, but we'll go with that, a 4-yard passing touchdown. We couldn't stop them on defense, and to be honest, our offense wasn't bad. It just situationally in crucial moments perhaps didn't step up. If you have a look at how we graded, basically no one has a bad grade in this game. One of the worst guys was Goff, and I think that kind of reflects the fact that situationally in those really big 3rd down, 4th down moments, he didn't do it. But we actually had, in amidst all of those, a 3rd and goal from the 1 and a 4th and goal from the 4, and we were fairly productive all the way through, and we took risks, and actually quite a lot of the 4th downs come off. One of the themes through the game is we were just going for it all the way through, and actually it worked a lot. So is it just a bit unfortunate, really, that those didn't come off, or was it going for it too many times and you're just risking your luck? Did you guys like the 4th down decisions that happened? I know I'm throwing a load of questions at you guys, but take what you like and run with it.
Well, in a game that's over and you've already lost, what's the point in not going for it? You've got to work out what works and doesn't work, don't you? I think pretty much the moment we fumbled the ball away, coming out the half, I knew for me it was over. All momentum is gone. They're now going to put us to bed. That was, as someone put, the nail in the coffin. And that we were chasing our tails from then on. I don't dislike any of the calls. I think we got 3 out of 5 4 downs. I think we converted it, yeah, which is a good percentage. That's a reasonably good percentage for a game. Some of them were like 4th and 4, so they weren't even shorts, they weren't even inches, but we were getting them. Again, it was the red zone that killed us. 3rd and 1 at the goal line, 4th and 4 at the goal line, not converting is completely inexcusable. It's just when the field gets short, we get crap. We just can't work with a short field, even though we have the personnel to. We don't use the personnel at the right times, or we don't get the right play calls. That whole drive just summed everything up. If you can't score 3rd and 1 from the 1-yard line, when can you score? Especially when you've got heavy set, you've got tight ends, you've got fullbacks, you've got running backs. There's personnel for the right player, but for some reason, we either get the right personnel and the wrong player, or the wrong player and the right personnel. And we never seem to amalgamate the two in the red zone. And that's why we're a bad team in the red zone. So we gave the ball away poorly and we didn't take our chances. And that just led to us chasing shadows. We were shadow boxing for the rest of the second half.
Yeah, and I think as well, you've got to look situationally at what was going on on the other side of the ball. So you had a situation where you got Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I think they had like 40 touches between them, and they rushed for an average of 4.7 yards, like 184 yards in total. I mean, they're just going to take the game away from you with that run efficiency. It just forces you into playing bad football because you've just got to go for it when you're points behind, and that they're just like running the ball, and you can't stop them. Obviously, the fumble gave the Broncos great field position, and that meant that we had to go for it on the next set of downs. And then when we turned it over on downs, that gave them more great field position. And then when you've got those two guys just running the ball, Noah Fant making some like clutch catches. I think he had like 4 catches for 51 yards. It's just going to like kill the game. And it just felt we were always playing catch up.
That second half flew by. That's one of the shortest halves of football I've seen all year. It went by in a flash because they were just alternating 2 backs. I will say another positive though. It was another relatively clean game. There weren't that many penalties, which is okay because now that's back-to-back clean games from a team that's been well indisciplined all year. So that's a kind of positive, I suppose. We're getting better at situational downs like that. I think there was only 1 pass interference, like maybe the odd false start, but finally that's kind of kicking in. It's a bit too late now, of course, but at least we're not shooting ourselves in the foot as much. We're just turning it over instead.
Yeah. So only 1 first down from penalty, which was a really early defensive pass interference from Nickel Roby-Coleman, who we've kind of known for some time is probably a bit of a liability out there because he hasn't. They've been calling on Mark Gilbert from the practice squad, not him, and that's a damning indictment on Nickel Roby-Coleman, I think. Just to highlight some of what you guys have been saying. So, time of possession actually pretty similar, 32 to 28 minutes. So it's not like they were handing it to us in terms of time of possession. The Lions were 1 of 3 in the red zone in terms of touchdowns. The Broncos were 5 of 5, which is just really, really disappointing. Yards per rush for the Lions was 5.6 to the Broncos 4.7. So even if you take Netflix's 35-yard rush away, the Lions dropped to 4.2 from my quick kind of mental mass in my head. That's winning football. You can do with that. But the Lions got themselves behind situationally and had to get away from running the ball, which is a real shame because passing the ball is not our strength. It's just not. Yards per pass in this play for Goff, 4.8. What can you do with that? And I mean, we haven't talked much about the Goff interceptions. So Goff throwing to, I want to say it's to Brock Wright. Yeah. So Brock kind of telegraphs where he's running a bit because he's looking down at his feet of where he's running. So Simmons has got his keys. He can see exactly where the ball's going to go. Times his pick perfectly. But Goff does throw it behind Wright and gets his timing completely wrong. So I think this is totally on Goff, even though Wright could have maybe refined his running technique a little bit to kind of throw Simmons off a bit. He ran a fine route and Goff just missed him. Am I missing anything on that? Or
nope, he couldn't have done much more. Even if he refines the route and comes back for it, Simmons still undercuts him. It's a mile underthrown.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, there we go. Right.
And then there was the other one where Goff just threw the ball straight into someone's helmet. When the lineman didn't even go up for the ball, it just threw it into someone's helmet, and that could have been another interception.
Was that on 4th down as well? I seem to remember that might have been a 4th down. Yeah, that was particularly painful. Right, so themes of the game. I wanted to start with flu and COVID gives the Lions no chance, ? So I predicted coming in that the Lions would lose by 20. I now realise the error of my ways and that was optimistic given the result. But looking at what happened in the first half and the way that although we conceded 2 touchdowns early, we then scored 10 unanswered and we kind of lost the momentum in really important spots. Is that right? Did the Lions really have no chance coming into this? Or was it just a lack of execution? Can we blame them for having a lack of execution? You know, give me an idea of what you guys think about playing the game at all. Like there was talk about the fact that it could have been moved back a day to give the Lions a chance to get healthy and maybe not infect the rest of the Broncos team. It's going to be interesting to see if they come up with any cases of the flu after this game. What do you guys think?
Well, from what we've been told, I don't think rescheduling was ever a case. If the Lions didn't want to play and were adamant they weren't going to play, it would have gone down as a forfeit. I don't believe it would have been pushed back because then that affects next week's preparations. I can't imagine that was ever really a case because even pushing it back a day would probably not have made a single bit of difference. I don't see anyone that's available realistically a day later. I don't think it makes much difference. And also, all the players that were missing, do they help us stop the run? No, I don't think they do. Even the likes of Julian Aquara, edge pressure, like we hadn't had much pressure all year, most pass rush. We had even less this game, but I don't think most of those players coming back affects the result in any real way. Maybe we convert better on third and fourth down. Maybe if we've got Swift. But I still have us going into the half behind. The turnovers were still chasing our tails the whole game. We still lose, but maybe we bottle up one of the two running backs and they go a bit heavier. They don't alternate between them. But ultimately, I'm not going to put our loss down to the bodies. Probably just execution. And the Broncos planned a great game. They mixed up the passing, the rushing. They got the balance really well, kept the defense honest, and they just picked on us quite heavily. So it was a well-designed game by them.
Yeah, I think as well. I mean, yeah, this is a game that we just wanted to get out of the way, I think. But I mean, it poses a lot of questions when you look at our receiving core and the state it's in, and the fact that Brock Wright and Shane Zylstra and Tom Kennedy and Kadal Hodge were all on the field. Where was Trinity Benson?
Where he belongs.
Yeah, like what's happened to this guy?
Even when he's fit, he's not good enough to play over a flu-ridden other receiver.
I'm glad to get rid of him tomorrow. I don't care. I don't know if there's any permutations in his trade. Do we have to keep him to lessen the blow? I don't think we do. There's no permutations, is there? Want it a straight swap?
No. There was a conditionality, I think, to the pick. I think it's definitely a 7th, and it was a 5th. It was a 2022 5th for a 2023 6th. But I think the 5th is conditional and maybe can become a 6th. I think, but I don't know what the conditions are. So, God knows.
Hopefully it's him never playing but being active. So let's hope this works out. Maybe it's their master plan. Let's just sit his ass.
Yeah. So there's that. And so we talked about the Lions coming back into the game and Netflix. Run defense. So we've talked about how good Williams and Gordon were. Their longest rush wasn't particularly fast. So unlike Reynolds, who took off a 35-yard run, the longest rush Denver Broncos had was 16 yards by Melvin Gordon. Between them, they rushed for 184 yards on 39 carries. They were productive all the way through. We didn't look like we could stop them, and it's borne out in the PFF stats. If you have a look on the defensive line and in our linebacking group, that front 7 really struggled against the rush. So run defense, lowest graded player, Derek Barnes, followed by Levi Onwuzurike, Rashad Berry on the edge, Jesse Lemonnier on the edge. Then you had Aleem McNeil, apparently had a hard time in his 19 snaps. Michael Brockers, Nick Williams closing out that group of 8 of the worst run defenders on the team, all happened to be in that front 7. It was also not helped by the fact that it was probably our worst tackling performance of the season. Couldn't seem to get arms around him. Now, Javonte Williams came in as a guy who could break tackles and broke tackles at an exceptional rate. And we all know what Melvin Gordon did at the Chargers. And, he even held out for a contract because he wanted to be paid like a premier back in this league. So we knew coming in that this rushing attack was going to be dynamic and it was going to be really hard. And at the same time, even though we hadn't had much preparation, our run defense had been one of the strengths of this team, in my opinion. And I'm disappointed that, scheme may come and go. You may be in the wrong place, but there's no excuse for missing tackles ever for me. So that's probably the most disappointing part of this game. I don't know if there's someone that you can pick out that had a good game in that regard. Penasini apparently had an okay game against the run, but there was only 2 positively graded players against the run, and that was Nico Roby-Coleman, who's a cornerback and isn't going to do it very much, and Charles Harris. Charles Harris was the second highest graded player on the team. So he obviously started, took 61 snaps, which is the third most in the defense. But, one guy in a 7-man group of defenders does not make a run defense.
No, it's atrocious.
We spent quite a lot of time in pre-season talking about winning in the trenches and what the draft picks were going to do, and how Liam and Levi and Brockers were going to just absolutely shore it up on the inside. And the Broncos ran on us 4.7 yards a carry, 184 yards. I mean, it was just embarrassing from that point of view that we just couldn't stop them, because there's a lot better rushing teams in the NFL than the Broncos, and they just steamrolled us and just took the game away from us. So that's a massive concern for next year if Liam and Levi are struggling at run stuffing.
No, I agree. To have Nico Roby-Coleman, who, as you say, he's nowhere near the run players, to be one of the highest grades of rushing defense, that kind of says it all. That's kind of abysmal, really. At least Charles Harris is doing his utmost to try earn at least like maybe a 2-year extension. At least he's kind of standing out on film. And then Liam McNeil, at least he got a sack, so that's probably what actually helped his grade overall. But as a front seven, didn't contain, didn't help set the edge, and got gashed through the middle. Linebackers are supposed to mop up. No, they look like they were trying to tackle through custard. It was awful. Yeah. Just guys slipping out, and it was just, It was one of the worst defensive players probably of the year. And we've just kind of showed up the defense. So it kind of took me by surprise that how ineffective we were on defense. And I was very frustrated.
But to give some love to Charles Harris, I have been saying about him for almost the entire season, you're showing yourself to be a good pass rusher, but can you do it against the run? Prove to me you're a 3-down edge defender. I mean, he comes out and shines. And I mean, maybe that's because they're running it away from him because they think the other side is weak, in part. But when they did run it his way, he more than showed up. And I've been saying as well for a little while that, the guy with the most pressures on this team is still Romeo Okwara, which is shocking. And then Charles Harris comes in and has 5 pressures in this game. In a game where we really struggled to get to Teddy Bridgewater whatsoever. Him having 5 pressures is actually quite impressive. So I'm going to, quite rarely for me, actually say, well done, Charles Harris. You have impressed me. So I'm not going to say it again, I don't think, but we'll see. Backhanded compliment for him. Goff, I kind of said that I was giving him a bit of a pass. He did show some good things in that second quarter, like the second quarter last week. Plus or minus on him after what's happened? What's your feelings now on Goff now and moving forward?
I'm resigned that he'll be here next year because he has good quarters. He's kind of like going good week, bad week. He's kind of like there. When he's in the zone, which is very minimal, he looks like a world beater. But it's just a shame his zone is like a 3.5-minute game of laser tag. That's kind of it, and it kind of like the batteries run out, and he just runs out of juice, and then he goes back to being crap again. So you take the minimal good with really bad, and you tell yourself it's got to be better one day. One day we'll have a quarterback.
Yeah, I'm kind of just have a sort of inner numb feeling about Jared Goff. My body's like, every time I hear his name, I have like this emotional shutdown. So I just can't give any kind of response, positive or negative. It's just a kind of a numbness and emptiness that comes over me.
That sounds like an advert for Train Spotting 3, the Jared Goff story. Just do a bit of heroin for you, watch the Lions. And then, like you say, it will fly. It can't hurt you no more. We'll all be just nice and empty.
The Lions
It's just a nothingness, isn't it? It's just a nothingness of Goff. Like, he's not that unlikable. Like if he was like a real dick, you could really get up like a head of steam about him. He seems like a nice guy. you know, and you kind of just feel a bit sorry for him, and you just want him put out of his misery.
Like, just kind of pleading with him, come on, you can do it, man. I don't believe in you, but please, you can prove me wrong. But, I mean, in fits and bursts he can, but because he's such a confidence player, and because he loses his confidence so easily, he's constantly beating himself. He's definitely got it. Like, the guys who we've been talking to a lot from the Rams, especially on Discord, Analytic, and Rams House, and what have you, have been constantly fighting his corner, saying that the guy's got it. And for once, the last 2 games, I can categorically say Goff has the ability. And that sort of 2017-2018 Goff that Steve loved to refer to earlier in the year is what we were hoping for. It's in there. Like, it definitely is. But getting him to show that consistently over a period of time, not even a long period of time, quite a short period of time, is proving completely impossible. Now, get some good guys around him, people that are going to perform week in and week out that he trusts. If they can unlock that, I actually do think that it's possible to have a good season with Goff. I am not resigned to us being absolutely terrible next year, even with him under centre. I think he's someone that kind of needs to believe in the rest of the team. I feel like his confidence is being marred by the fact that this is a bad team. He knows that we're a bad team, and while he's kind of completing 85% of his passes or 80% of his passes, he kind of gets in a groove. And then once he misses 1 or 2, he suddenly realizes he's on a 1-11-1 team and just shits the bed.
Yeah, but only he can fix that. That's no one else's fault. Is it? Like, can't have that mentality. You can't go from like one quarter to another thinking, well, I was riding high a minute ago and now I'm back to the basement of the NFC North. Like, he's kind of, well, I don't know if he has to see, I don't know, therapy or a counsellor, but I want to see him do something between these 2 seasons. I want to see him come into next year with some sort of a brand new mentality. Like, next year, Jared Goff is playing for his NFL future. If he sucks next year, he could be gone. He could be in Zaxby's waiting tables. He could be washing dishes in a Buffalo Wild Wings. He could be shipped out to the CFL because he's an expensive dude. We know that. Like, he ain't going to take pocket change. So there's going to be only so many suitors for him after we're done with him. If he really wants to extend his future any longer, then something mentality's got to change next year. But at least right now, he's playing better than Stafford these last 2-3 weeks. I will say that. Stafford's been awful. He's making so many mistakes. At least Goff's making less mistakes and hurting his team less. I will kind of give him that, but it's a small minor win.
I think I was watching a bit of the Chargers game earlier, and just like watching a bit of Justin Herbert, and the guy's like flinging the ball around, like he's just absolutely winging it. It's like a kid in a playground playing with his mates, just absolutely hurling it about left, right, and centre, and just like the confidence that's coming off him. And it just makes you realise what a massive, massive drop-off there is to what we've got. A guy that's like trying to throw the ball 3 yards and is holding onto the ball so tightly and just looks so, his body language is just so tense and rigid and just, clumsy. And you're just like going, oh my God, why can't we just have someone that can just fling the ball about?
So you want Justin Fields then?
We've had a guy that flings the ball about.
No, but it's just it's like the joylessness. Like Goff just looks terrified all the time. He's on the field, whereas like Justin Herbert just looks like he's just really enjoying himself.
Oh yeah. He is a kid. He's a kid just playing football, and it's great to see. I love watching Herbert.
Could you imagine if someone spiked Jared Goff's drink? Like, he just had a game where he wasn't tense and anxious. I don't know, give him some Adderall, bit of ADHD, a bit of MDMA. So he just kind of went out there and was enjoying it. You could probably see miraculous things. If he forgot where he was in that moment, I'd love to see him play like that. Because
Ryan, are you trying to suggest he spent 3 or 4 years at Cal and then spent 3 or 4 years with the LA Rams and didn't take cocaine? Because I can promise you that he probably had a few lines.
Not on a game day though, maybe. I'd like to see him do like in between snaps, like off the back of the centre, like a crack on the arse, just little secret pouch, like bit of a just shoot up a line, buzzed, play calling, 60-yard touchdown. There you go.
How
secret
you doing,
drugs,
Ant?
that's what
I mean,
Hey, how are we all?
I'll do.
oh good, oh good.
So we're
we
just
done
talking about Goff doing cocaine.
Oh, right. Well, not. I must admit the topic that I thought I was going to walk into, but okay, that could work.
Yeah, I think it could really loosen him up a bit.
Oh, it might just be like running
it's
for
just
500 yards in a game.
We do not endorse the use of Class A drugs. To put that out there. So
Only as fans to get through the season.
And you've actually come in at a very opportune moment because I'm just doing my themes of the game and I've come on to the bit where I'm going to be positive. So this is right up your street. The first bit of news that we have in terms of positive things from this game is Penei Sewell posts his first overall 90-plus PFF grade of his NFL career, is part of the best overall blocking performance of this season by this offensive line, and per PFF, he is so far the top-rated tackle this week. That's exceptional from a guy who in preseason was regarded as a bust. I know that one of our biggest fans, Ashley Soden, has kept the receipts from those people, those absolutely clueless, brain-dead national pundits who have the temerity to call themselves pundits, saying that he was a bust, that it was a mistake to take him, we should have taken other players that position. And he comes in and since week 6 has been the second best tackle in the league and is the leading tackle this week against a very good pass rush. And Penei Sewell, he's the man.
Absolutely. And you notice the trade Decker crowd's gone really very quiet now. Oh no, he can't play at right tackle, yada, yada, yada. Why don't we have 2 great tackles as opposed to trading one away and trying to find another again? This is why. This is why you keep your good players and you use them. Great talents will find a way to slot in at different positions, especially on the offensive line at tackle. It was never in question that he was going to be able to move along there. And, he's not really even had any growing pains. He had 1 or 2 little, blips there. But tackle's a hard position to get into. But since Decker's come back, he's flourished. He's been even better than he was before. So, yeah, it's absolutely great. This offensive line gave Goff a lot of time to throw on Sunday, and it was really good to see. It was just unfortunately the Goff of old returned in some situations and missed a few of those easier throws. But looking forward, it's very positive. We went after the trenches in the draft, and the trenches are starting to look pretty strong now. So yeah, like you said, those receipts have been kept, and you will soon find yourself on our Twitter channel soon, paying for those receipts, because there was some absolutely terrible ones out there. You can't call a guy a bust or a success after a few games. Like, you still can't do it now. He's playing great now, but you've got to give it another year or 2 before you can truly label a player. But as far as I'm so happy for him. But he was just one of many guys who came in and did all right on Sunday, I felt, in fairness.
I'm still giving him an A grade. I don't care what you say about not doing it. He's got an A grade from me. Steve, Penei Sewell. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, Sewell was class, absolutely class. And yeah, as Ant said, the trade Decker crowd have gone very quiet, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Not what I can say. So, since week 10, moving Sewell to right tackle, I think he's second among right tackles and third against offensive tackles for PFF grading. So in the last 2-3 games, he's been one of the best tackles in all of football. That's after the switch, which people worried about. People were contemplating, would he be able to shift over a side and learn it all again? But this is not new to him. Even though he had a limited playing time at Oregon, he's taken snaps all over the line before. He started as a freshman. He's played them in high school. He will have done them in preseason camp. People act like it was the first time he'd ever seen a right guard next to him. People were making out like he'd never even stepped foot on that side of the line, or he didn't even know what the temperature was on that side of the hemisphere. Like, people were just making silly claims. the people were expecting the world for Decker. People were making up these ludicrous trade scenarios like, oh, someone will come in and that needs him drastically. They were never going to do that. They were never going to come in and give us the world for him. He was never going anywhere. If we'd have asked him to move to right tackle, I 100% think he would have done. I think he's a team player, but he's slotted back in now, and everything's just humming along quite nicely. And even Vitaly, like he's really won me over this year, and I'm pretty much almost certain he's going to be back next year. This is probably our starting offensive line next year. Get even another guard to eventual place Vitaly, but I think right now things are pretty much set in stone, and it's one of the cornerstones of the team right now. Best defensive line. And I saw something else today. I think this is the first time since 1945 the Lions have 8+ players, different players that have all got a 20-yard or plus play in a season. So we're really spreading the wealth about. That's not something we do often. So, and all that starts with the line. So at least 4 of them are running backs. So if we keep it together well, we just find the right person to sit behind it, we could do great things one day, especially in the next year or two. That 4.8 or whatever our yard per reception is going to drastically climb when clean pockets.
Yeah, definitely agree. Talking about other good performances, you mentioned Vitaly, and he came alive. But another guy I mentioned earlier, but I just want to focus on him again, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So this guy, we were saying at the very start of the season, maybe through the first 5 games, he's barely got a touch. We saw him do loads of stunts in pre-season. Where's the jet sweep and this and that? Forget the jet sweeps. He still hasn't had any of those sorts of stunts we thought were designed for him. He's being fed the ball as WR1. Like, he's out there as an outside receiver, as a slot receiver, just getting absolutely farmed the ball. In this game, he had 8 receptions on 12 targets for 73 yards. And on the previous game, I think he had 10 for 14. This guy now has 57 receptions, and I was going through the rookie receiving records yesterday by brute force. I wasn't doing any sort of secondary research. I was trying to go through Pro Football Reference, trying to find the guy with the best rookie reception record, and I believe that record is 58 receptions. He's now at 57. So this guy will take the record probably in the next game, assuming that there's no injury in there. And to be honest, it's well deserved, because a guy gives absolutely everything every week, and he's not perfect, and he does make mistakes, but he's there far more than some of the veterans are, and I just want to throw him some love this week, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be a really, really good wide receiver 3. Like, I don't think he's a wide receiver 1 or 2, but like I said, he's going to be a great wide receiver 3, and with a better quarterback thrown to him, this guy's going to be a star in the league for several seasons to come. But just in terms of what he's doing there now, just trying his best. I mean, he was our offense through the air for long periods of the game. I think he had like 8 catches from 12 targets. And, he was kind of just single-handedly doing it on his own. There wasn't a lot of support. There was not a lot of players drawing heat away from him. And he had to play into some tough coverage. But this is a measure of the guy. Like, he's an absolute star.
Yeah, he's better than his brother. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to have a much better career as well. It's trending in a much better direction. I think if the likes of Cephas, etc., don't get hurt, I feel like his target count may drop dramatically. But you've also got to give him like plaudits for being the guy that stepped up when there was less mouths to feed. Because Raymond has shown it in flashes, but he's not consistent. But at least Amon-Ra's showing a bit of consistency now in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and hopefully he ends the season as the main guy to feed in the next 3-4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anyone else that you guys want to throw some love to in a bad game where we got our asses whipped? And let's face it, it was never going to go any other way, really. But is there anyone else that really stood out to you as someone who did really well?
Tracy Walker, pay the man.
He didn't play.
He looks good.
Did he? He didn't play.
He
stood out to you as a good player.
Yeah. He still played better than Harris. Still played better than Harris, didn't play, but he's played good in every game this year. Even all the terrible ones. Just bloody pay him. but not too much.
Steve, anyone for you?
I mean, Riley Patterson kicked a field goal. He didn't miss the extra point.
Oh, it was close. It wasn't straight down the middle like the ones in Ford Field.
Considering he's about our fifth choice kicker, I'm happy with the fact that he didn't miss.
I think CJ Moore played really well. Didn't CJ Moore play really well?
CJ Moore was the highest ranked defensive player on the team. 26 snaps, 70.4 grade.
So there you go. Mainly special teams, I imagine, but he's now become the new Mike Ford. I think he's playing a lot of the gunner, which it's nice to see that someone's taking the initiative on special teams and it's not missed a trick.
Yeah, so CJ Moore on special teams had 14 snaps in addition to the 26 I just mentioned. So he was on the field quite a lot, was one of the better ranked players. I want to give some love to Brock Bright. I thought he came in and didn't get a foul on the ball too much, but I thought his blocking was good, and I thought he had 2 receptions on 3 targets, and I felt like he was massively underused. Also, the return of Matt Nelson this week. 13 touches, including coming in as the 6th lineman for Craig Reynolds' 35-yard run. He reported eligible on the end of the line, and then we ended up pulling that off. Now, I don't think that was actually anything to do with him, but he was there, and good things happened. So, Matt Nelson is that 6th guy. I feel like good things happen when we do that.
It's worked so far, bringing in the extra lineman, because this team has a very distinct lack of tight ends. So when you need to bring in extra bodies, go heavy set, he's pretty nimble. Like if you pull him, if you do a reverse or anything like that, he can get across the other side of the line. He can work as a lead blocker. So even though he's had his struggles playing at right guard, at right tackle, when you bring him in these extra packages and just give him like one thing to do, try get to the next level or try sail a block or make a hole, like he seems serviceable in that edge. It's going to be interesting to see if he's able to carve out a role for himself next year. Will he be here or not? He's going to be one of the more positions to look at as the offensive line, because we've got a lot of spare tackles kicking about.
And just to throw the floor open to you, because you haven't been on for the whole pod, is there anything you want to talk about this game or about anything about the Lions?
No particular. I think, it was a series of errors that have really plagued our season, which really did for us in this one. I was really pleased with the way that they came back in the second quarter after going 2 scores down early. It looked like it was going to be a really long day then, but we're used to seeing this now. In a Dan Campbell team, you've got the resilience in there, the hard work, the desire to never quit, and they came back into it. And 2 stupid mistakes, 1 fumble right after the half, Goff getting his foot trodden on by Vaitai. They're just silly, technical things that we need to iron out. But, we've known that these problems exist now. We're at a stage of the build where stuff like this is going to happen. So, it's a shame, but I enjoyed the fight they put up, even when they were quite down late on. Still put a lot of fight up. So it was a disappointing day, but I woke up this morning and I really didn't feel bad about this at all. I think the team is still developing. I'm still seeing plenty from lots of players on there. So Reynolds had a great game. McNeil's getting better. He had a great game. Harris is still having a really good season. I thought he got a lot of pressure on Teddy, despite not getting a lot of help, in the pass rush there. So, for me, I've seen what I need to this season. I've seen the culture change. I've seen the fight and desire in this team. 2 early injuries, another 2 injuries. Jacobs and Zaloni are out. You can roll over after something like that. But, what is it? Josh Woods, he steps in, leads the team in tackles. I think it's the most by a player this season. He got 13 altogether, which is the most by a Lions player all season in a game, I believe. You got these guys coming in 4th, 5th string guys who are still working their absolute asses off in this team. And that's a testament to the coaching staff that they're getting them to come in and perform really well. Like I say, it was only because of a few mistakes of our own that they really began to pull away. And in the end, it was just a bit too much. But yeah, I walk away feeling more positive than negative after this one. I'm looking at the season as a whole now, and I'm pleased with what I've seen. with how they've done, and hopefully we can finish it strong. And then we're going into an off season where lots of money is going to be available on draft picks. So yeah, I'm relatively happy after that, despite the scoreline.
Yeah, so sending out the links to this podcast, living us slightly on the Facebook area of the Detroit Lions groups, which is a cesspool of horribleness. All you get at the moment, Steve, is this idea of, well, the Lions have lost by 28, and we've been blown out by the Eagles too. Dan Campbell can't be a play caller. He doesn't know what he's doing. We've got to fire him right now. And you haven't been on recently, Steve, so I want to hear what you have to say about that sentiment, because it's not unheard of. And I know that Ryan, the other Ryan Farden, who our resident Londoner who goes over to Detroit all the time, has kind of said that sentiment is being shared a lot actually in Detroit itself. What do you think about that idea? Is it too early to say what Dan Campbell has or hasn't done? What do you think of his performance so far?
I think from our point of view as Lions fans, Campbell's role this season is to be the kind of catalyst for the rebuild. And I'm not going to judge him on a 4th and 2 play that he might have called wrong, or calling into blitz the wrong point in a game. I mean, I'm just not interested in kind of that. Like, for me, it's about what he can do in bringing a group of players and coaches into a scenario where we can be a winning team in the next 2 to 3 years. And part of that, it's like a big journey, and you can't get bogged down in the granularity of this play call here, or should he have kicked a field goal there. Like, I'm not interested. I'll judge him on that when the games mean something. Really, most of our games this season haven't meant anything. So for me, this talk of like getting rid of Campbell is just absolute rubbish. I mean, we could be stuck with someone like Urban Meyer. Would you want that in the team and won an extra game? But we've got Urban Meyer as a head coach. Screw that. Like, I want someone like Dan Campbell, someone that we can kind of like get behind. People like Aaron Glenn and Deuce Staley. Those are the people that I want to get behind. And let's not just judge them on stuff, on stuff that's happened this season that doesn't really matter very much.
Yeah, so to kind of follow up on this just quickly before you say anything, Anne, on the BBC show, the NFL show, so that's led by a couple of former NFL players in O.C. Umenyiora and Jason Bell, who we've had on this podcast before, friend of the show. And they both said that in the event that you just went off the record alone, you might say, sure, Dan Campbell's going to be on the hot seat, maybe you fire him. And then if you were to hire someone, now you're going out for the search, you want to find someone that's going to get the players to buy in. You're going to want someone who's going to bring the right culture to the team when it's at its lowest ebb. And they said, if you got rid of Campbell, he'd be the leading candidate to actually get rehired because of the qualities that he brings in. He's absolutely beloved by the team. And that's exactly what you need. Sorry to interrupt, Anne, but I thought it was an important point.
No, you raise a good point. I mean, me and you discussed it the other day on the preview show. It's absolutely ridiculous, some of this criticism that's coming in for him, but it's coming out of a place where I think the more negative side of this fan base is, seeing that we are actually making progress, and they're worried that they're not going to continue to be able to spout off the negative stuff they live by much longer. I mean, Dan Campbell, I put it in the tweet today, you only have to look at the attitude of the players he's brought here. I mean, look at Jerry Jacobs. You see his heartfelt, play today. He's bought in 150% with this franchise, with our head coach, etc. These are the sort of players here that we want. This is the sort of buy-in that we want. And this is all this season was about. It was the buy-in to the new culture, the implementation of a new attitude, and you want to see the development of the players. And I can tell you now, his detractors are getting so desperate that they're actually saying that, there is no player development. They wouldn't know how to develop a player if they tried. And it's just like, you're just making baseless accusations now. You look at guys like Craig Reynolds, who's come in after a season, sat on the sideline, has fitted seamlessly. And you look at Evan Brown. You look at Jerry Jacobs. You look at Parker. I mean, you look at someone like Charles Harris, whose career was nearly over, and he's come here and had a renaissance. The player development has been insane. And that's exactly what you want. The players have bought in, and he's working in a situation without a lot of money. Cap is everything in this league. And when you're working without over half of it, it's an impossibly difficult situation to be in. And the fact we're still competitive and fighting hard with players on that sort of budget is testimony to what a good job that he's doing. And as I've said on this podcast enough now, for the aggressive play calling, Lions fans have very short memories. 12 months ago, we were bemoaning the fact that Matt Patricia had punt on 4th and 1 from the opponent's 40. He would do that all the time. He would never take risks with his players. And he had a top-tier, elite caliber quarterback to work with. And they went mental all the time. And now that he's actually been aggressive, it's like, oh no, he should be more conservative. But that's only been done by the people who want to bash him. I've said this season, this is a throwaway season. If you want to see the mentality of your players, put them in tough situations. Make them take those 4th and 2nds, 4th and 3rds. See if they convert. That is how you find out the characteristics of a player, whether he can work under pressure, whether they can convert. It doesn't matter if we don't get it. We were going to lose that game anyhow. So, I just do not get this hatred towards him. He's shown us everything he needs to this year. And I can tell from the accusations against him that people are just who want to bash him are getting desperate. They've got no evidence for what they're coming up with whatsoever.
Yeah, completely agree. Is there anything you guys want to bring up about the Lions before I maybe move on to a bit of a lighter topic to finish up?
I think for me, we've got something really positive to look forward to this week. So if you look at the fixture list, we are playing this week, and we've got a game against Arizona. I'll be watching, but I'm not going to be expecting much. But the good thing is that looking at the fixture list, the Houston Texans are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, and that can only be a win.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, come on, Ant. You can't debate that.
And I think the Texans play the Jets the week after.
Whoever loses, we win. We could potentially win another game. Win. Yeah, absolutely. We can win another game and probably still retain the first overall pick when it comes to the end of the season.
We don't need it.
Win another game.
We really, really don't need it. We've got a GM who can draft wherever we pick. We really don't need that first pick. We need wins. That's what we need now. The team is developing. It needs to learn how to win games and win regularly. So if we can do that, we've got the Falcons in a couple of weeks. There's a possibility for 1 or 2 if you try hard, but you don't need that first pick. It's not going to change your franchise. It really isn't. It's how good your GM can draft right the way down the draft. And he's shown this year that he can do that. So take the wins while you can get them.
Yeah, fair enough. Any other business on the lines? Right, let's talk about a former Lion taking the biggest game potentially of his career this evening on Monday Night Football. It's Matthew Stafford and the Rams against the Cardinals. If the Cardinals win, they sort themselves out a playoff spot come what may, and they get a 3-game lead in the NFC West, which everyone thought was perhaps going to be a 3-horse race between the other 3 teams in that division. So what a run they've had. Even if the Rams win, they pull themselves within a game of Arizona, who are still in the lead with 4 to play. So it's an absolute must-win for the Rams, who could be 3rd in that division if they end up losing this game going down the stretch. And they're being rocked by the news that that Ramsey, the All-Pro, perennial best defensive player in the league, Jalen Ramsey, has been placed on the COVID list, and he is out. And Tyler Higbee, the tight end, is also out. So prospects for that draft pick getting a bit higher for us. Yeah, that's gotta hurt. What do you think's going to happen in tonight's game, boys?
The Rams are going to get stuffed. They're going to get stuffed before those players get hurt. Stafford's going to have another stinker. I think the Cardinals are going to batter them. I don't think it's even in question. They have been so disappointing, the Rams. They have gone all in on this year. They have thrown money at the wall that they don't have, and it's kind of hilarious. because at this rate, there's no guarantee they're even going to make the playoffs. Now, Stafford is my favourite player, but last few weeks, he has been awful. He has cost them multiple games, making those errors that we saw for years. And if it helps our draft stock, I don't care where we pick. I couldn't give two hoots about the Rams pick, to be honest. I'm just glad we have two of them. So if it moves closer together, sure, that's fine by me. We can make it work. Probably bit more tradable if we want to do some damage, move around a bit. But I think it's going to get ugly tonight for LA, and I expect them to lose heavily because they've got no backup plan. That run game is terrible. It has not taken any pressure off in weeks. Darrell Henderson and whoever the bloody traded for, it's just not worked. And I don't rate the all-line. They are so overrated. It's unreal. So I hope Kyler Murray goes to absolute town on them.
Yeah, I agree. I say agree. I want the Cardinals to win, but anyone who's watched this podcast for any number of times know how much I like Kyler Murray. I've been on Murray's fan train ever since he was first drafted. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's going to be a hell of a great quarterback going forward. So, it's his time to shine now, and I think he's going to do it. And, as far as we're concerned, our draft pick, I know I've just said, it doesn't really matter where we pick, but every spot helps in regards to that. It could be the difference between maybe grabbing a Devin Lloyd or not. And, he's a game changer at linebacker. So if it increases my chances of getting a guy like him, then I'm all for it. But, the Cardinals have just been really good this year. I think they've built quite well how they've done. They've assembled a great team there, and they've been overlooked by the other three teams in that division for a long time now. So it's, it's good to see them come to prominence. And, I hate Sean McVay. quite simply, I hate him. So, I hope that it all goes pear-shaped for him and his super team that he's tried to assemble there, because no more excuses. He chased Goff out the city and blamed all his inadequacies on him. So it's time for McVay to suffer a little bit of humiliation instead.
Yeah, and the Rams' last three fixtures at the Vikings, at the Ravens, and against the 49ers, and Shanahan's always got the edge over McVay in the kind of tactical matchup. So unless the Rams pull out a real surprise win tonight, there's no way they're going to get ahead of the Cardinals in that division.
So I really think, and I've said this before the Jags game, but I really think that the Rams will miss the playoffs. I know that's an exceedingly wild take, but they're 8-4 at the moment. I have them losing to the Cardinals away. I have them losing to the Seahawks, who are starting to actually play well for the first time in a while. I have them losing at Minnesota. I have them losing at the Ravens, and I have them losing against the 49ers at home. I think they will lose out and finish 8-9 and miss out on the playoffs by a team, maybe the Vikings, going 9-8, or possibly 8-9 with the tiebreaker. So I think a sub 500 team has a chance in the NFC to get in, because of how high the highs are in the NFC also mean that the playoff teams of the wild card are kind of low. And, it's just an outside shot. So they're 9% apparently at the moment to miss the playoffs, which involves either one win or no wins in that run. I think there's a good chance of it. I don't know if I'm completely mad. What do you guys think?
Well, the Seahawks just got wrecked by Davis Mills and the Texans. So what the hell do you think Stafford's going to do to them with all those weapons? They're probably going to drop 50 on Seattle. Apart from that, though, there's a possibility they could, but there's no way Seattle's beating them whatsoever. Not when they let the Texans run wild on them like they did the other day.
Yeah, I think with them, I agree. I think they'll beat the Seahawks and finish like 9-8. But if the Rams come up against like the Packers, I can't see them beating Dallas either. I really can't see them advancing beyond the wild card round, and that will mean that we're picking at about 25.
Yeah. All right.
I think even the Chargers. I think even the Chargers could take down this LA side of it. They're really good, balanced on both sides of the ball. I can see LA losing out too. I can see in a week or two Stafford having him getting scooped off the floor because I think Jamal Adams is probably going to pagger him. Quandre Diggs, definitely put your money on an interception. He will pick off Stafford. That is, I think that seems like destiny. I think he's going to be an interception machine from now to the end of the season because I think he's fallen off the wagon. The confidence seems gone, and the fans are going to turn on him very quickly.
I don't think you can underestimate the importance of that pick moving, because we thought it might be 31 or something, moving up to 24, 25. That could be huge as well for us. You know, if they miss on the playoffs and we get well with this first round pick, then, you know, in a year or two, this trade could look lopsided in favour for us. It could end up being a really good piece of business.
I think we'll end up picking about 21, 22 with that pick.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the most likely spot, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it be 18, 19 as well. We'll see. One Pride 40 is coming with an interesting question, which I think we've asked all the way through the season, but now we've won a game, it kind of has a new meaning. Do you see the Lions picking up another win this season?
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't ask me who or when, but yes. Someone will rest some players. Someone will have a bad day. The Lions will win again. And I think 2 wins, we might just sneak first, maybe second, depending on what happens for the rest of the year. But I don't care. If we lose number 1 because we win another game, I do not care because there's no player in this draft even worth number 1. So who the hell cares? Give me 2 wins. I would love to beat Seattle. I would love to actually stifle that offense that's kickstart and that defense that is god awful. They can see so many yards and points. I think we could have a field day on offense that day if someone's healthy.
I think it's going to be the Falcons or the Seahawks, one of those two possibly. I think that's where you're looking at. I mean, the Falcons aren't that good. They tried to buy in this year. They went all in. They missed out on a quarterback to start a rebuild there, and it's just not worked for them. And I know one of their starting safeties just got crocked for the season today. They're suffering with injuries, you know, just like we are. So I can see a possibility there. I can see one against the Seahawks because, you know, that defense is truly dire. For the amount of money and draft picks they've spent on that defense, it's poor. It's really, really poor. And they're in a state of flux right now. And I'm with Ryan. I've already said, I do not care about that first pick whatsoever. Not one bit. There's not one player that's worthy of it. They're great players up there, but they're not number 1 draft picks. You ain't going to be able to trade it. I'd rather come down a few spots. I'd rather get the wins. I think wins are more vital for the development of this team at the minute than that first round draft pick, plain and simple. So I hope we do get another win, and I hope we don't get it. You know, even if you finish at 3rd, you get a guy like Kyle Hamilton. He's a game changer. He's going to be a great player, and you've got wins under your belt, and you've got a great player coming into your midst. So win all around.
There we go. I don't have us winning another game, if I'm honest. Sorry, Steve.
I was just going to say, let me take you back to my predictions from the start of the season when I said that Green Bay would have won this division by about the end of October, and we will end up playing at Ford Field in Week 17, the Packers' 3rd string, and we will beat the Packers' 3rd string on the last game of the season.
Yeah, Week 18 does shape up to be... I think that's the most likely game we win for sure. No matter what you say about Seattle, going away to Washington State is never easy. It just isn't. And Wilson has started looking a little bit more like himself.
Well, Rodgers is dealing with that toe injury, isn't he? He said today after the game yesterday, it's getting worse. And they can wrap the division up this week. So if they do win this week, expect them to bench him for the rest of the season so he can get surgery. Because they said it's going to take a week or 2 for his surgery to heal up. So, I think Steve's right. We're not going to be facing Rodgers last week of the season, barring some sort of miracle collapse from them, which still sees the Vikings with a chance of taking the division, which just ain't going to happen. But, we won't be playing Rodgers.
Rodgers got these magic homeopathic remedies that will cure his toe really quickly.
Your love of Aaron Rodgers never gets old, Steve.
Yeah, I don't think
I hate to disappoint.
We'll not see him Week 17. I don't think. Not if if they want to rest him with this injury. He says it's bad. It's struggling. He's struggling with it. So expect him to wrap up the division next week, and then he'll be done until the postseason.
Yeah, we definitely won't see in week 17, but we probably won't see in week 18 either. You're right.
Whatever. Game day 17. Pedantic so and so.
Any other business, boys? All right. So I've had the confirmation through while we've been on air. We will definitely have Herman Moore live on the show Wednesday night following the college football podcast. A college football podcast on some point on Wednesday evening. Not quite sure when yet. And then following that, Herman Moore will be live with us. So join along for that. I want to do a viewers' question segment. So if you want to DM us or join our Discord channel and let us know any questions you might want to ask one of the absolute legends of the Lions, please do get in touch. Otherwise, our next proper show with Jeremy Reisman of Pride of Detroit will be the following day on Thursday. Cardinals at Lions preview show. Otherwise, you can follow us on Roar the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The Facebook group is Detroit Lions Fans UK 1 Pride Worldwide. Articles come out on roarthelionsuk.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This episode, whatever you can to help us out, would be greatly appreciated. And thank you for joining us in the car in the horrible weather between you and the pub. Much appreciated. Steve, great to see you after so much time. Hope to see you Thursday and throughout the rest of the season. Ryan, thank you as always for being my partner in crime, especially through the last few weeks. Been much appreciated. To all the viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Matthew Turner, and we will see you on Wednesday for the College Football Podcast and for Herman Moore. Let's go, Lions. One Pride.
One Pride. Restore the Raw.